Okay, Rabbi, good evening. A good Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh, Mar Cheshvan. We're holding on Mamish, the month of Cheshvan, and we want to give a shout out first of all to our wonderful, wonderful sponsor from the JFoundations, Rabbi Yudkowsky, and we want to give out a big shout out on the recent engagement of him to his Kala Liora Shapiro. And we want to wish them Mazel Tov. We want to wish them a lot of bracha and Atzlacha. And we were discussing before that hopefully we'll see if we can somehow keep the podcast going. And I'm going to throw it out already. It says already we're speaking about it. Till now we've been doing the podcast, and Yisrael puts in a lot of effort. But at this point, I think we're going to have to go for some funding. And we're throwing out that there are people out there who are interested in following through and want to help with the funding. It's $100 per podcast, and it would help for us to be able to defray all the costs and to be able to give the time that everyone puts into it. So this is a little shout out for that, for this mitzvah. And anyone wants to chop around the mitzvah, we can be in touch either by email or we'll work out a link how you can work it out. And but we want to get into a little bit of a different type of podcast than I would say in the normal format. First, I think the last time we had our podcast was before Rosh Hashanah, and it was very light-filled. We spoke about the concept of the light of Rosh Hashanah. Tonight, I want to speak about the Yontif, which we just finished. When I say the Yontif, really an amazing, amazing Yontif of Sukkot, which was the culmination of the entire avodah of Elul and Tishrei. And you take a look at it, it's really like an amazing amount of energy that went into it. And it culminated with the great Yontif of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. So I want to speak tonight, a little bit about a little bit of an insight which I had during the Simchas Torah. I myself was zocheh to get the Chosson Torah. To get Chosson Bereshis. This is very important. I was zocheh to, someone sponsored two people that went out of their way and they bought the Chosson Bereshis and they gave me the cover of having the Chosson Bereshis. And the same people that bought the sponsorship for the Chosson Bereshis for myself, they also bought it for somebody else and they gave the Chosson Torah to somebody else. So I want to speak about first of all, the Simcha of Simchas Torah. And we're going to speak a little bit about some minhagim and some insights. And the way I've framed it is really to look at it two different questions. Question number one: what's more important, Chosson Torah or Chosson Bereshis? Oh, isn't that an interesting question? Did anyone ever think about that? Well, I'm sure many people might have thought about it. And I'm going to let it out. Let's let it hang out in the air right now for everyone just to contemplate it. What's more important, Chosson Torah or Chosson Bereshis? That's number one. Number two, which is maybe even a stronger question, which is what's more important, Hakafis on Simchas Torah or the Kiddush? You know that Kiddush that every shul has in the middle of that Hakafis, they stop. And some people have lavish kiddushes in America. I imagine have a lot more lavish kiddushes than we have over here. Other people have more simpler kiddushes. What's the kiddush? What's the kiddush? So the kiddush, on a simple level, you probably just understand it as being a little break, get a little chayim's, get some more energy in order to get some liquid, get some zaynas, in order to be able to dance further and able to dance with the Sefer Torah and to enhance ourselves with the covet of the Torah. So is the Kiddush important, or is the Kiddush just a necessity in order for us to have kaiches? And if it is important, well, is it as important as a kafis or not as important as a kafis? So these two questions, normally we don't speak about it, but I thought that this was an interesting insight we could touch base upon, and we could get some inspiration from it as well. So if you take a look at the Shulchan Aruch, really, the whole inyan of Hakafis, we know, is a fairly new, the Yontif of Simchas Torah and Hakafis is a fairly new event in Klal Yisrael. It only started getting into to the minig of Klal Yisrael in the last 400 to 500 years. And if we read the Ramah, we see some very interesting things. The Ramah says like this. The Ramah says, V'hinei, Siman Tov Reish Samach Tes. Hinei, Karen Yantiv Ha'achron Simchas Torah. We call the last day of Yantiv. Again, you have to understand, the Ramah was speaking about the minig of living in Chutz La'aretz. We know that in Chutz La'aretz you have 2 days of Yantiv. You have Shmini Atzeres, and then there's a day of, which is called properly a Simchas Torah. Here in Eretz Yisrael, everything is combined together. So the Ramah says the last day is called Simchas Torah, which means the joy of Torah. Lefi shesmeichen, because we're happy. Now you would imagine, why are we happy? We're happy because it's got something to do with Torah. Oh, so he says, we're smeichen v'osim by sudas mishta. We make a suda at a mishta. We make a meal and a mishta. Mishta reminds us of a little bit of what Purim was all about. You know, a mishta, v'simcha. And why do we do this? L'gamra sol Torah, because we're completing the Torah. We know the cycle. We completed the Torah. We finished the Zayis HaBracha. And because of that great simcha that we're finishing the cycle, just to go off on a tangent for a second, Yisrael mentioned to me before that we're now holding in our Erev Shabbos Devar Torah podcast. We're holding already, beginning the 3rd cycle, which is an amazing, amazing simcha. And I'm very, very thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and thankful for Yisrael, and thankful to everyone that listens, everyone that's involved in it. So let's get back to the point that we want to bring out. The reason why simcha, it's called Simchas Torah, for the simcha that we make a Sudas Mishta. Why do we make a Sudas Mishta? Because we're finished the Torah. We're being gomer the Torah. So the first thing is, the Ramah just mentions the inyan of a Sudas Mishta, and we have to understand if that has any connection to Kiddush. Next thing is, the Ramah says, V'nagim shemasayim ha'torah v'maschel Bereshis, Najim nadarim nadafis. It says, oh, there was a minig. The people that ended the Torah, they got the last aliyah, and the people that got the next aliyah for the beginning of Bereshis, they would give nadarim and nadavas. Just happens to be that tonight in our Daf Yomi, we started Masechta Nadarim. So, you know what it is to make a neder and a nadava. And what's the purpose? V'kairin la'cherim lasas mishta. Again, he says, the people that finish the Torah and are starting the Torah, they get together and they get other people to help out in order to create the Mishnah. At this point, there has been no mention about Hakafas. Then the Ramah adds on, V'oid nagu b'medina seinu. We are also knowing in our Medina, in our Medinas, that means in the Ashkenazi countries, Lahaitzi b'simchas Torah arvis v'shachris kol sifrei Torah shev'eichel. We take out the sifrei Torah from the Eichel at nighttime and in the morning, and we say Zmiris v'sishbachas. We say Zmiris v'sishbachas. We sing and we dance. That's all it says. We sing. It doesn't even say dancing. It says we take them out and we say Zmiris. V'oid nagu lahakifim sifrei Torah. And then the Ramah says the last thing. The last thing Ramah says, we have a separate minig to be makif, the bima with the sifrei Torah. Shebebeis hakneses k'moshe makifim im lulav. Just like we're makifim the lulav. V'akol mishum simcha. Everything is for the simcha. And then he says we call up everyone to get an aliyah. We have kol ha'na'arim, other minhagim. But if you follow the lashon of the Ramah, the lashon Ramah is very, very interesting. The lashon Ramah is the first hanhaga that the Ramah put into the minig Ashkenaz is to have a mishta v'simcha. In the middle of the davening, you're supposed to stop, and you're supposed to have a mishta v'simcha. It doesn't say if it's in the middle of davening or not. That doesn't say. But there's a minig to make a mishta v'simcha. And then he says, in addition, the Chosson Torah and the Chosson Bereshis, they get other people to get involved. Thirdly, he says, there's a minig to take out the sifrei Torah to sing. And then fourthly, he says, there's a inyan of Hakafas. Now, I saw many, many years ago the minhagim of the Anshe Ashkenaz, which is from the Sefer Minhage, the Kila Kadosh of Varmaisha. And I saw some very interesting minhagim, which were written approximately 400 years ago. And I was fascinated by some of the things. I was fascinated by some of the ha'aras from the Eirich, Rav Binyamin Shlomo Hamburger, my mechutin, who was a very, very big expert in the Minhagim of Ashkenaz. And I was so fascinated by it. About 1 year on Simchas Torah in our shul, we had the schus of having for many, many years one of the greatest Talmidei Chachamim who lived not only in our neighborhood, but in Eretz Yisrael, Reb Shlomo Fisher, the Goin Hatzadik, the tremendous, tremendous Talmid Chacham, one of the Fisher brothers. We were zeichet to have Reb Shlomo Fisher live in our community, and he davened with us on many, many occasions in our minyan. And I pointed out to him that in the Kilo Ketov of Armayis, it brings down some very interesting halachas. Number one is, there's no mention of hakafas. And it seems that in those days they didn't do hakafas. They would call up the Chosson Torah, they call up the Chosson Bereshis, and they have the long mishaberach that they give, or the mishaberach, or the amoid that they give a tremendous amount of honor for the Chosson Torah and the Chosson Bereshis. And then, after Suda Shachris, it seems they would finish davening, they'd do Suda Shachris, and the Shamish would call out, everyone should go to the Chutzner, and a certain lashon that they use. So the Chosson Torah would come with all of his entire family. The Chosson Bereshis would come with his entire family. And they would go out into the Chutzner. They would come together with their wives. It's not such a popular minhag. You don't know if it would go down too well in the Kilo Kedoshas of where we're holding today. But this is what they used to do. They used to come with their families. And they would bring peiros. They would bring fruits. Lahamid al shulchan, to put them on the table. And they would throw the fruits, and I guess the fruits were fruits which wouldn't get so ruined, in order it shouldn't be bezayin of eichel. They would throw to the children, so to speak, to the na'arim. Like we have the minhag to throw candies. You see many children throw candies. You see the kids are so happy when they come to shul, and the dentists are even more happy because they know that they're going to get those. They're going to get those gewaldige teeth soon. And it says the gaboyim tzedakah would bring peiros noyim, and they would put it on the place. There was a special inyan to have fruits, and we're soon going to see not only they have fruits, soon they had other things as well. This was the minhag. And there was such a tremendous simcha that took place. They used to sing, we'll soon see they used to sing, that they bring down over here, this is Rabbi Yosef Shemesh. Rabbi Yosef Shemesh was a gewaldige, the Gabbai, the Shamus in those days, in the Kilo Kedosh of Vermeiza. And he said that one time there was a certain non-Jewish woman that saw the simcha, and she was so taken by it, so she asked that she had an orchard, and she said she wants to be menadiv, her orchard, for the benefit of the Jewish community, and b'tanai, that they should use on Simchas Torah, they should take the fruits from her orchard, they should put it on the shulchan, they should throw it to the Narim, until Bias HaGoyel. An amazing, amazing concept. This is what they would do. And he brings down that they did this for many, many years until there was a big war, and then the orchard was destroyed, and then the minhag stopped at that point. First of all, we see there was a minhag that they used to gather together, and they used to have some sort of suda. And then it says they would all gather together. The Rabbanim would come. They would come l'kavod Torah. They would sit around. Yoshvin uksasin. Some people would stand saviv l'shulchan. And then it says Mishi yesh lechavita yayin b'marteifa. Anyone that had barrels of wine, jugs of wine, would come with wine, and I guess they would drink. The chasanim, the Chosson Torah, Chosson Bereshis would bring wine, and they would eat from the fruits. They would drink. They would be happy. And then he says something which is fascinating. Everyone knows about on the inyan of the Meduras on Lag Baimer. Well, guess what? In the old days, on Simchas Torah, they would make a Medura Shel Eish Gadol. They would make a tremendous fire, and there's a lot to talk about what the purpose of the fire and how it was mutter to do it on Simchas Yantiv. And then, when the fire would be burning, after the Madlik, the Rav and the heads of the community would get together to Chasanim, v'kulan yotzim v'roim b'simcha hu, v'alabatim miraktim sovav v'eish, u'mechangin v'oizin kol mini simchas. Then they would have like a mini dancing and singing, like we would say, like a Simchas Beis HaShoeva type of concept. So what do I want to bring out from over here? I want to bring out from over here, we see that there was an Indian of bringing yayin. And I heard, and Reb Shlomo Fisher Zecher Tzadik L'Vracha told me that Reuven Bengus, it's worthwhile to get a picture of Reuven Bengus. Oh, just a picture of Reuven Bengus was from the great Rabban in Yerushalayim, and he was a colleague of Rabbi Zalman Meltzer, and he learned in Volozhin. And then when he moved to Eretz Yisrael, he became the Rav of the Bedatz. And Reb Fisher told me that his brother, Reb Meir Tzvi Fisher, was a lot by Reb Bengus. And over there on Simchas Torah, the minhag was that the Talmidei Chacham would drink a lot of wine, and there would be a lot of shikarim. Now today's not a popular thing of getting shikar because people have addiction problems. I'm not saying that everyone should introduce this minhag. But we see from over here there was an inyan of the Gewaldige Simcha, of the Gomra Shel Torah, and it seems that this is really the basis for the Ramah. The Ramah is telling us that the real minhag, the way it really started was, the minhag really started with the Sudas Mishta. And therefore, I believe that we could learn from over here that the Kiddush, which takes place in today's minhag, in our shuls, and that's why this year I made a very, very big effort by the, I had an aliyah, and then for Chosson Bereshis, and then on Shabbos, Parshas Bereshis, I made a very big Kiddush. My Rebbitzin helped, and other people helped, and we had kugel, and I brought wine, and we had herring, and we had peiros, we had yerukas, and I said over some of the things which I'm telling you right now, and I wanted to bring out that it could very well be that if you want to know really what's more important, is it the hakafas or the kiddush? It could be that the kiddush is really the most important thing, because the kiddush really emphasizes the fact that we're making a sudas mishta legomra shel Torah. The minhag of the hakafas came afterwards, and for sure today the minhag of the hakafas is gewaldik, and the Arizal says that all the great levels that he reached was from the simcha shel mitzvah. And the gain was makbid to dance with the Sefer Torah. The Chazon Ish, they say, he used to mamish. I heard the Chazon Ish mamish, but in his minyan, he used to go mamish wild, crazy. When I say wild, crazy, you have to understand what that means. But he was dancing with all of his kaiches because he was holding the Sefer Torah. If we want to know how we end up on Simchas Torah, it's ending up with the concept of the Gomra Shel Torah, the completion of the Torah, and the happiness and the joy. And therefore, question number one was, what's more important, Kiddush or Hakafas? We're going to take the part that says the Kiddush is the most important. The Kiddush really represents the concept of the minhag to create a mishta, the simcha, which was the original Kabbalah of the minhag. And then the Hakafas came afterwards. And the Hakafas also shows Al Yedei, the mishta v'simcha. Like we know, we have on Purim, we get together, and we have a Suda, and we have some yayin, and then nichnas yayin yotza side. And I was thinking to myself that it could very well be why Shabbos Bereshis is an Indian to have some people have the minhag to have the Kiddush on Shabbos Bereshis, and according to us we brought wine, because it could be because Bereshis we speak about the Indian of the yayin hamashumer misheshis Bereshis, the wine that HaKadosh Baruch Hu set aside, that's going to be Meshumer, Meshesh Bereshis, the mitzvah when Mashiach comes, we're going to drink that wine. So when we have an opportunity the next time, when we're sitting on Simchas Torah, and we're sitting by the Chosson Torah, we're sitting by the Chosson Bereshis, or by Shabbos Bereshis, and we drink a l'chaim from some wine, some yayin, contemplate really what we're doing is we're elevating our feeling of the fact we're able to complete the cycle of the Torah, and we're starting a new cycle. And now we're going to say a big chiddush. We asked before, what's more important, Chosson Torah or Chosson Bereshis? The simple understanding is Chosson Torah. Chosson Torah is completion of the Torah. And the minhag in many, many communities is to give the Rosh Hashiva, to give the Rav. So in the communities where they buy it with money, and there's a lot of money that goes around, and they give it to a very chashuv Talmid Chacham of the Rav. Or we have minhagim in the yeshivas. My grandson was by us yesterday. He told me that in his yeshiva Ketana, they had 120 boys, and they donated, I think, 5,000 hours, beyond the regular starim that the boys are going to do, and they gave it to the yeshiva. The yeshiva should have the Chosson Torah. And the Chosson Bereshis is usually like, okay, if that's for the Balabatim. You can't give the Balabatim Chosson Torah, you give them Chosson Bereshis. And they can spend a lot of money, and it helps the shul, and there's always a big bidding war that goes on. So Chosson Bereshis is really delegated to the second tier. It's not the first tier. Chosson Torah is first tier. That's the A game. And the Chosson Bereshis is really the secondary team. But my friend and the great Talmid Chacham lives in our community, Rabbi Michal Shurkin Shlita, in his Sefer Harei Kedem, he brings down that the minig of Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, who was the son of Reb Chaim and the father of Yosheber Soloveitchik from Boston, was that he always would get the Chosson Bereshis. And he used to say the pshat is that if we really analyze where do we know that we're supposed to make the Chosson Torah and the Chosson Bereshis, where do we learn it out from? We learn it out from Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech, the pasuk says in Melachim, that he was asked by HaKadosh Baruch Hu what he wants, and he said what he wanted was to get Chachma. And Rebbeinu Shem says, since you asked for Chachma, so I'm going to give you the other two presents, which is long life and Ashiris. We know that Shlomo Melech was doicheh to a lot of Ashiris. And therefore he received three things. He received Ashiris, he received Chachma, he received long life. But the most important thing is he asked for a Leiv Chacham Umaskil. He wanted to have a heart that would be able to understand things. And then he went to the place where he could bring karbanis. It was before the Beis HaMikdash was built. And he brought a lot of karbanis, l'simcha of the mitzvah, the Gemar mitzvah. And that's where we learn out that when there's a Gemar mitzvah, you're supposed to make a Suda. Because the Shlomo Melech brought karbanis, therefore we're also supposed to make a mini type of event like that. So Rav Michal says, Shlomo Melech did not finish anything. He just was getting Chachma. So we see from over here that the real concept of the Chosson Torah is that when we finish the cycle of the Torah, now that we've gone through all the parashas, Bereshis, Noach, Lech Lecha, all the way till V'zayis HaBracha, and we had insights, and we had new chidushim, and we had new chachma that came into us. We received chachma from the Rabbi Shalom, and we're very, very joyous. So how do we celebrate? We celebrate it by now starting the Torah over again. And therefore the Chosson Bereshis, he's really the one that takes the chachma that he received, and now I'm going to now have a new way of analyzing the Torah. Now I saw a new insight. Just had to be a Maimer Musker. Today I was learning with my Chavrusa a new pshat, a new insight into Parshas Noach, something which I had not seen before. A little diak and a Rashi. Every single nuance, we see new things in the Torah. How does it come about? When we finish the Torah and we're happy and we start the new cycle, the Chosson Bereshis. And therefore, Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, he would really go for it in the Chosson Bereshis fashion. So we had like two questions, and on the surface, we would analyze it on the superficial level. The more we got into it, we saw there's a lot more depth. We saw that between Hakafis and Kiddush, could be that Kiddush comes out on top, and it could be between Chosson Torah and Chosson Bereshis. Okay, it's not Chosson Torah that comes out on top, the Chosson Bereshis comes out on top. But the truth is, now we want to say something which is going to help us to say that no matter what we held before and what we hold right now, it's all good. Because we said over, and we said it over on Erev Shabbos, but it's worthwhile repeating, a gewaltige insight from Rabbi Kiva Eger. We know, everyone knows, famous word, the Torah ends with a lamed and it begins with a beis. Le'ena kol Yisrael, Bereshis bar Elokim. And we all say, that's like the first thing, like, that's a go-to Dvar Torah. If you don't have any Dvar Torah, you always go to this one. The lamed and the beis, leiv. What does Rebbeinu Shem want from us? He wants our heart. And that's the connection between the end of the Torah and the beginning of the Torah. Kiva Eger says something interesting. Kiva Eger says, well, there's a little bit more that you can add on to that. He says, if you take a look, the letter that comes before the lamed is a chaf. The letter comes before the beis is an aleph. Aleph and chaf spells out the word ach. The letter after Lamed is a Mem. The letter after Beis is a Gimel. Put the two together, it's Gam. The Gemara says, Kol achin v'rakin shebetorah eina bo elomayit. Whenever you see ach in the Torah, like we said, v'yisa ach sameach. Ach is a lashon of miut. Kol gamin shebetorah. Whenever it says gam, right? Kol esin v'gamin. Gam always is being marbe. So Zokter Akiva Eger, that there's a hidden lesson in the Lamed and the Beis. The Lamed and the Beis are in the middle, but on the side of them, we have different letters which are surrounding them. And these letters are teaching us a great lesson. The Gemara says, Echad HaMarbe, Ve'echad HaMamit. Doesn't make a difference if you do a lot. If you learn a lot of Torah. Echad HaMamit, if you learn a little bit of Torah. That means it doesn't make a difference if you're being Achin, which is being Mamayit, or you're being Gam, which is being Marbe. As long as the main core of yourself is that your lave should be for the heavens. And I think this is a great way for us to be able to complete this podcast, this Simcha Dika podcast of understanding that we drank L'chaims, we had Kiddush, which helped us to get through the Akafas. We had Chosson Torah, we had the Chosson Bereshis. We saw different insights into the way the Minhagim, the way it was formulated. But the main thing is that when we connect to the Torah and we see the insights of the Torah and we see the depth of the Torah, we should realize that our hearts should all be connected to the Ribono Shel Olam. We want to wish everybody that this month of Mar Cheshvan, month where there isn't any Yontif, but we're still carrying with us the Negunim of the Yontif, the aura of the Yontif, the Simcha of the Yontif, like it says in the Svarim HaKadoshim, Mar Cheshvan Lashon Merachashin. Merachashin means the words are murmuring. We're murmuring those Negunim. I wake up in the morning, I'm still singing Negunim, V'samachta b'chagecha. I'm still singing songs from Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur during these times. And Baruch Hashem, we still have this Rosh Chodesh, which enhances and gives us a simcha to be mahalo to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Wishing everyone a wonderful month. And Mitzvah Hashem, we should be zeicha to the simcha, the Gemara of Torah, and with all of Klal Yisrael, we should be zeicha to dance together with Mashiach Tzidkenu. Wishing everyone a wonderful Rosh Chodesh Mar Cheshvan. Thank you very much for listening. We want to thank JFoundations.com. If you could sponsor any of our activities, it'd be another way of addressing and being able to give over Torah to other people. Go on the website and show your support. Thank you very much for joining us.